This is Jonathan Lane from Fan Film Factor, and today I'm here with Mr. Steve Shives, who is a YouTuber with a channel that has almost 200,000 subscribers and 3.5 thousand different videos on it. I count those all by myself, by the way. There's a tally at the top, thank goodness. But my God, it's a staggering number of videos that, well, they pretty much cover pop culture. They cover sci-fi. They cover politics, they cover religion, and they cover Star Trek. So nothing that anybody really cares about passionately enough to want to complain about. Uh, and Starting last year, he began to create these skit videos that I would definitely consider to be Star Trek fan films. They are Steve as a character in front of a green screen where he has an artificial background of a starship interior from the 24th century. And he has these interesting jobs in the 24th century. He has been a Starfleet lawyer. He has been a Starfleet janitor. He has been a Starfleet union rep. And most recently, a Starfleet guidance counselor. And let's just take a really quick look at some of these really interesting characters.
The second time I spoke to a member of the command crew on the Trinidad was the captain. They came to my office about 2.5 years into the mission. You know what they wanted? To know if they could replicate notarized documents. I said, no, you need to have them notarized, which I can do because I'm a registered notary at law. They said, very well, thank you, and left, and I never spoke to them again. Oh, hold on. Better close this down. I like coming up here on my breaks. You can't beat the view, but you're not supposed to have the door up while we're at warp. One of the officers catches me and I'll never hear the end of it. The rules exist to keep us all safe, and they apply to everyone, as if I didn't know that. If there's anyone on board a starship who don't ever need to hear the safety lecture, it's the custodians, you know what I mean? We see it all. When someone tries to beam back to the ship through an ion storm and all that arrives on the transporter pad is a pile of wet hamburger and hair, guess who has to clean it up? Well, not me. I get one of the kids to do it, but you get the point. They don't want to strike. We don't want to strike, but last week the union voted overwhelmingly to authorize a strike. It was something like 99% in favor. That's ridiculous. You don't get 99% of people to agree on anything unless it's, I don't know, do you want cheese on your pizza? So Starfleet Command, think about that and take heed. How committed is the union to striking if necessary? As committed as we are to having cheese on pizza. That kind of unity is unbreakable. Don't test it. There is actually a traditional pizza without cheese. It's called pizza marinara, and it's delicious if you find somebody who can make it right, but that's beside the point. Plus, one thing you can't ever call life on a starship is boring. It's lots of things. Exciting, unpredictable, thrilling, stressful, nerve-wracking, emotionally draining, soul-crushing, existentially exhausting, startling, shocking, unspeakably terrifying, but it's never boring. How come they have emergency medical holograms but not emergency legal holograms? Huh? Think about it.
And that's Steve. That is this guy who has produced, and honestly, I love these. Every time you come out with a new one, it's so different. It's so unique. First of all, it's unique among fan films, but it's also just unique in that it's not just the same characters you had last time. It's like this really different guy with a different accent and different backstory. And I have to say that if you have a chance to watch any of them, and you should watch all of them, but I thought Starfleet Guidance Counselor was poignant. That one,
Thank you.
That one got me right here, and I wasn't expecting that because the first three are kind of, they're mostly funny. This one was funny, but it was also there was a message there. Remember, I said he talks about politics. If you're a conservative to the right, you might want to skip this video. Yeah, he's a liberal, like me. I actually watched a bunch of your other stuff as well. Before I even knew you were doing Star Trek stuff,
Yeah.
I actually saw one of your speeches from a candidate who basically this is what the candidates would say if they told the truth, and I was like, wow. And then later on, I saw you on a Starfleet video. I was like, it's so familiar. Where have I seen him before? Wait a second. And then, yeah. Anyway, I should let Steve talk for a little bit because I give him quite the intro already. So first of all, welcome to Fan Film Factor, Steve. How you doing?
I'm doing great, and thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, it's great. I've been wanting to get Steve on here for a while. You're a difficult man to get a hold of.
Well, I've been, I screen my calls. I see that it's you, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm not ready for
Nobody
that
wants to
yet.
talk to me. Nah. But you're so damn popular. I mean, let me ask you that question first. I was like, what am I going to start talking to him
Okay.
about? Like, the first thing I want to talk to you about is, do you do anything other than YouTube videos? I mean, do you have like a regular job, or are you basically subsisting on whatever you're getting from YouTube? Because you got a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
subscribers.
I don't have a real job. The YouTube channel is my full-time job. And thank God, because I have no idea what I would be doing otherwise. I have because like I did go to college, but I studied English, so I have no useful or marketable skills. Um, I really don't know what I would be doing if I hadn't stumbled onto this. I mean, there are times when I wish it was a little more lucrative financially, but it's lucrative enough that it pays my bills and affords me a decent, a comfortable lifestyle, if not a luxurious one. And and then it allows me to basically do whatever I want to do within the limitations of, the means available to me. And it's great. I can't imagine doing anything else.
Well, I mean, you are your own boss. You get to set your own hours. I'm guessing your hours are probably pretty crazy with all the videos that you have. How many videos do you make a week, by the way?
Typically, I do uh three like scripted and pre-recorded edited ones a week. And plus I do one or two live streams. Usually I do a live stream every Wednesday, although that one was off this week, and then I do a live stream every other Friday to interact with my audience and interact with my Patreon patrons and channel members and various financial supporters and stuff. But as far as like actual proper, sit down, write a script, shoot a video, edit a video, there are usually three of those a week.
Okay. And so how long does that take you overall to get up there?
Well, I mean, it depends on the video and the amount of work involved. My schedule is usually I shoot on Saturdays and then begin editing right away and edit, through the weekend. And I have a video ready for Monday. And then once the video for Monday is ready, I work on the next one and have that ready for Wednesday. And then I also do on Thursdays, I do a Star Trek episode review video that I do. And part of that process is I do those all in one day. Like I watch the episode I'm reviewing early in the morning. I write the script in the morning and hopefully finish it by lunchtime, shoot it, edit it, and have it out by the afternoon. So that's a very compressed, all in one day process. But the other ones, the Monday and Wednesday videos, it's once I'm done editing those for the coming week, then I start writing the ones for the week after that. So it's, I mean, it's a busy schedule. It beats working for a living because I get to, I get to do it all at home, and I can, if I need to take a break, I can take a break. If I need to go do something else, I can do something else. I can do things like this, and it's not a problem because, I decide when I do things and when I don't. But, um, I'm working on something almost every day, whether it's writing or shooting or editing or doing, stuff to prepare or whatever. So, I mean, it is somewhat of a grind, but it, like I said, it beats working for a living.
And how much time do you spend each week, I guess, interacting with your your patrons, your or Patreons? I don't know what they're called.
Whatever you call
Whatever
them.
your donors are, and people, because because here was my secret to getting in touch with Steve finally, because I was trying to find out, Facebook connection to him, and email for him, whatever. Had no idea. And then every time I tried to message him on Facebook, friend request or whatever, got nothing back, and I figured he's just really busy. And then finally, on the Starfleet guidance counselor, I just decided, okay, I'm just going to post a comment on this video, and first of all, told him how great I thought it was. Always better than up first, but and then
exactly. Yeah, there's an inside tip for you folks.
Yeah, always say something nice about the video. So it's so easy to criticize Star Trek fan films. I like to say, it's like shooting fish. But
exactly. Well, yeah, I saw your comment, and what made me interested in it, and what made me interested in wanting to actually get in touch with you and maybe do something like this was that it was specifically about those Starfleet jobs videos, because like I've been interviewed by people before, I've gone on podcasts and other people's channels, and it's usually just more of a general interview, like how'd you start in YouTube, and or if it's more specific, it's how long have you been a Star Trek fan, and it's more like a general discussion about Star Trek. And I love that, and I mean I could talk about Star Trek all day, and I can talk about myself, and I do for a job.
You do. He's got Star Trek reviews. By the way, I've also watched your Star Trek reviews. They're very, very good.
I really like doing those. I did one today, in fact. And so like, and I can talk about myself without a problem, but it's like I've done that in the past several times, and I'm not necessarily always, like up to do that again when I've done it a bunch of times. But when you were like, oh, let's talk about, the stuff that I've done that you could categorize as fan films, I'm like, okay, that sounds more interesting, because I do really like those videos. Like I am very proud of those, so that was the secret to your success, not just buttering me up, but the specificity.
And here I am spending the first 10 minutes of our video asking you about, being a YouTuber and how much time you spend on it.
Carrot and stick, man. Carrot and stick,
Yeah. No, I think we call it the bait and switch. That was it. But okay. Well, anyway, I did want to ask you the final question, though, before we go on to the Star Trek videos, which is, so how much time are you spending each week pretty much nursing your fan base? Because you've got 183,000, people, subscribers and what have you, and your Patreons. And I'm guessing that they don't grow themselves, right? You have to put some TLC into that.
Yeah, you do. I mean, I feel somewhat fortunate that I haven't had to tend to my fan base as closely as a lot of other people feel they need to. I have a Patreon page, and I have channel memberships enabled on my YouTube channel, and people who are donors or financial supporters of the channel can get in touch with me if there's something that they want to ask me, or something that they need, or they have an issue, or they have a request or whatever. And I handle those on a regular basis. And I do a special live stream once a month on the last Sunday of every month, usually, where it's me and a bunch of donors, supporters, in a Zoom call together, and it's live streamed on my channel, so everybody can watch it, but only paid supporters can actually be on it with me. And I've been doing that for years, and that's always a lot of fun. And there are certain tiers of support where if you become a supporter at a certain level per month, you can request a customized video and that sort of thing. So I do all of that sort of stuff, and that's a lot of fun. But I'm very fortunate that I've never felt like I had to constantly reinforce and reassure and pander to my fan base, to keep them from leaving me. I feel like they're attracted to what I do because they like the videos. And that's always sort of been the deal with me and my supporters. I'm like, look, if you like the work I do and you want to help me keep doing it, I would love it if you would become a patron or a member or whatever you feel you want to do. And if you can't afford it, or you don't think that that's what you want to do, that's completely fine. But if you enjoy it and you can afford it, and you want to help make sure I keep doing it, then this is a way you can do that. And that's always been sort of the deal. Like, you support me and I will keep making the videos that are the reason that you know who I am in the first place. So I feel very lucky in that respect.
And how, and I know that was my last question about something other than Star Trek, but I just want to know how long have you been, first of all, how long have you been doing the whole YouTube channel thing? I think it was like at least 10 years. I wasn't sure. I saw on your channel. And
Yeah.
then also, when did it go from being a fun hobby to something that was actually supporting you?
I've been doing it all together for about 13 years. And it became something that I could actually at and support myself at, I would say, within a few years. I don't remember exactly. I'd have to go back and look and see like when I actually started my Patreon, because that was the point where it really was like, oh, okay, I can actually do this as a job, um, and actually make a go of it. But it's been probably close to 10 years since I've thought of it as like my job. But I've been doing it all together for over 13 now.
All right, cool. All right, I promised you I would get to Star Trek, so we're gonna get to Star Trek now. Now it gets
You
fun.
promised.
I promised, man, I did. And I promise I have to keep it. We have to talk about Star Trek. Sorry, everybody. Okay, so the first one you did was Starfleet Lawyer, and I want to
Yeah.
ask how. First of all, how did you conceive of even the concept of the Starfleet? Insert the job, description here. And then, once you decided to do it, how did you decide? Okay, I'm going to start off with a lawyer.
Well, it came from getting the idea to do the lawyer one. That was where the whole concept came to me. And the lawyer idea came it's one of those things that has always amused me about Star Trek. It's just one of those tropes that is a part of the show, because it's a drama, and because in a drama, in a television series with a regular cast, you want to feature your cast. And if you want to tell a story where there's some kind of legal issue involving one of the characters, you don't want to bring in some new person as a guest star to be the lawyer and be the star of the story. You want to use the people you have. So, of course, the captain usually ends up being the lawyer, like Captain Picard in The Measure of a Man, one of the great TNG episodes, like, who represents Data in his quest to be legally recognized as a person, not just an android. It's Captain Picard. Is Captain Picard a lawyer? I don't think so, but he's the one who does it. And so and there are other examples of that throughout, not
Yeah,
just TNG, but
Voyager.
throughout the franchise. Voyager,
With Q, when Tuvok was Quinn's lawyer.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, yes, where
I did my homework.
Janeway was the judge and
She was
Tuvok
the
was the lawyer.
judge. Yeah.
And then there's a really good Deep Space Nine episode where Worf is on trial,
Mm-hmm.
and of course Captain Sisko is
Rules of
his
engagement.
representative.
Yep.
Yeah, really great episode. And great. Worf almost kills innocent people, then it turns out he
Yeah.
didn't. It's a fun episode.
Yeah.
But so that's like been a trope in Star Trek for the longest time. And I always just thought it was funny, because I'm like, they have to have lawyers. Like, and if this was real life, and that's not usually a basis on which I critique the quality of the show. Like, I would never take, points away from the quality of an episode for saying, oh, it's not realistic. It's totally the wrong show to do that. It's Star Trek. But it can be fun to think about it in those terms, as just sort of an exercise of, well, gee, what would it be like if what would it be like if this was more like it would be in real life? And there would be lawyers. Like, there would be, I mean, the actual military has judge advocates. Like, they that exists. They have lawyers in the military. And you don't just, like,
I
your
want the
commanding
truth.
officer.
You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, like, exactly. Tom Cruise wasn't somebody's commanding officer. He was a lawyer. That was his job in the military.
Exactly.
So that's where it came from. I thought, and the joke became, okay, these people exist in the world of Star Trek. We never see them because the captain always takes that spot, but they exist, and they have training, and they have an education, and they are prepared to act as attorneys in these situations. They just never get the chance. So they're really frustrated and living these bleak, unfulfilled lives, and just sort of forlornly waiting for the moment when they get to do the job that they signed up to do. And, that's where that character came from. And it turned out so good, and it was so much fun to write and to perform, that I thought, well, I could probably think of some more of these, so like that, it was the video kind of birthed the concept.
And we'll get to the other ones in just a second, but now what you said perform. So here was the thing that really amazed me. When you said that you were an English major, I was actually a little bit surprised, not entirely surprised, because obviously you can write, but you can act. And I really thought that, you had gone to some kind of acting school. Did you go to some kind of acting school? Did you take classes? Because you're pretty darn good.
I took a couple of theater courses in college, but it wasn't even a minor, let alone a major. I have a little tiny bit of experience with, I used to work with a local, like very, very low budget independent film company that operated in my area. And I did some writing for them and also did some on screen, some on camera work for them. But mostly I think I'm just a ham. Like
You
I've just
definitely
always been a
are.
ham. Yeah, I am. I've always just been a ham. I've always enjoyed, uh, you know, making people laugh or performing for people. When I was a kid, I was always very imaginative. I would have my little action figures and I would make up stories with them and play the different characters and, get inside their head. Why is He-Man mad at Skeletor? You know what I mean? Like I would come up with little stories and little character
What's his
motivations for them.
motivation? Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, like, and I didn't think of it in those terms at the time. I wasn't thinking like, what is Skeletor's motivation? Why does he want Castle Grayskull so badly? Like, I just thought, well, if he was a real person, why would he be acting this way? Like, I didn't have a jargon for it. I just approached it as if it was, I imagined that they were people. And I think that informed me as a writer, and later it informed me as an on-camera performer. Because once I figured out how to do it in front of a camera, I mean, it was over. I was like, oh, this I can, now I'm going to look for every possible reason to do this, you know, um, because it's an outgrowth of just playing pretend as a child, is what it is.
Now you get to play
But
pretend as an
thank
adult.
you for saying that you think I'm good at it, because I'm completely untrained. Um, I think
And
I'm
then,
okay at it. I always get a little sheepish when people compliment my acting. Not that I don't appreciate it, and not that I think I'm bad, because I don't think I'm bad at it. But there are times when there are times when I'm editing my own work, and I think I did a really good job on that one. And then there are times when I think, well, that's okay. And hopefully nobody will notice the little mistakes that I see in it.
well,
But
as you may or may
yeah,
not be aware, because I don't know how much you follow Star Trek fan films or fan film factor or anything like that. You probably don't, because why would you? Uh, Actually, that's a good question. Have you seen any Star Trek fan films? I guess I should just insert that at some point.
I've seen a few. I've seen the two big classic Trek fan film series. The
Star Trek
what started
Continues
out as
and Star
new
Trek New
Star
Voyages.
Trek
Yeah,
Continues and New
phase two.
Voyages that became Phase Two. I've seen all of those. And back probably about 15 years ago, I saw a little bit of Hidden Frontiers, which was, I think, for a lot of people, was the first like Star Trek fan film, like attempt to do a series that got some traction on the internet. So yeah, and I mean, they are all, they're low budget projects that you
Hmm.
have to sort of judge them, on a
Exactly.
sliding scale. But yeah, I think they all have their merits. And I mean, Star Trek Continues especially was very impressive. I mean, there were some episodes of that, just judging them purely on the writing, never mind the technical production, like that were really, really quite good. So yeah, but beyond those, it's not something that I usually make a point of like seeking out, but every once in a while, one will pop up that looks interesting to me, and I'll check it out. And I'm like I said, I'm glad that I checked out New Voyages and Star Trek Continues in particular, because they both have their moments where they're just really, really good.
Did you see Prelude to Axanar at all?
I did, yes, I did see Prelude to Axanar.
That's
Yeah,
also
and
one of the
again,
ones
like,
that's considered like cut,
yeah,
cut above the rest. I would say that some of the top ones out there, Avalon Universe,
mhm.
very professional looking, good
Oh yeah,
acting. But what I was going to say is, but I watch all fan films. Well, as many as I can try to, all Trek fan films, I can say, and
yeah,
not even all of those because there's just so freaking many of them.
there are a
Uh,
lot. Yeah,
but you sort of develop after a while a certain patience with them because these are
yes,
fans. These are people who don't necessarily know how to act or how to frame a shot or how to light a shot or whatever. And like, okay, just put yourself into the headspace of imagine this looking like the real Star Trek world with people who can perhaps act a little bit better or have better makeup or better fitting costumes or whatever. Just
right.
allow for that. And so in terms of your acting, it's not that I would put you up against Sir Laurence Olivier or anything like that, but just compared to your standard fan and what they're doing in the world of Star Trek fan films or whatever, your characters are very, first of all, they're very consistent. They're very, uh, they're very easy to watch. I mean, especially with Starfleet Guidance Counselor, I watched that all in one sitting. I admit to you a couple of times, with lawyer and janitor, I think I took a break about halfway through to like, oh, okay, and then I
Right.
finished it up. So it's okay if you guys do that too, by the way, if you're watching, it's like, but watch the lawyer thing because what you don't know about the Starfleet lawyer thing is he gets progressively more and more drunk, which is a lot of fun.
Yes, yes, yes.
But it's something unexpected. But the thing is that first of all of your characters are very different. I mean, even though it's Steve Shives playing each and every one, and there's always the beard and whatever else.
Yeah,
You create a different accent. You create you hold yourself differently. You do a lot of things that people who are actors are taught how to do. So for me, that sort of said, oh, this guy probably has been trained a little bit, and so the fact that you haven't really been trained or you took a couple of theater courses, but that was it. Good job. Keep up. Do whatever you're doing. It's working.
thank you, thank you. A part of it is also just I am a movie nerd. I mean, I have been. I mean, I watched Siskel and Ebert religiously from the time I was probably 5 years old. So I've been keenly interested in movies and in particularly film acting, just as an observer, as a critic, and not as someone who ever expected to actually do that, but just as someone who appreciates it and and likes to notice things that actors do, you know. And I know, like, for me personally, it's very important to be aware of your limitations as a performer and to not exceed them. And I think if people look at my performances in my videos and think that I'm a good actor, it's probably because of that. Because I'm aware of I know how to be funny. I know what I can do and what kind of characters I can do that will be funny. And if I want to be more serious, I know I have a range in which I can do that and be convincing or be effective, and I can't go beyond that. So I try to stick within the lines that I know that I'm safe. Yeah.
Like being a singer and trying to sing "Take on Me" when you're a baritone. It's just like you're just not going to get up
Yeah,
there falsettos.
that's a good analogy. Exactly. Just, yeah, stay do if you can't do it, don't do it. you know.
My wife and son sort of say that to me every time I try to sing. Uh, don't do it. Don't do it.
Don't
Uh,
stop it. Why are you doing this?
so, are you located in any place where you have access to people who are actors or performers or anything, or are you sort of out in the boondocks somewhere?
I'm mostly out in the boondocks. I'm in Western Maryland. We do have a local, like, theater community here, but I'm not really connected with it in any way. So I mean, I guess there is a potential pool of collaborators if I ever, would need that or want that or be able to integrate that into what I do. But I'm not really involved in that right now.
And doing any like stand-up comedy or anything, stuff like that.
No, no, no.
You
I'm
make
not
some
that
extra
much of a
money doing
glutton.
stand-up comedy. Glutton for
Not that much of a
punishment.
glutton for punishment. I mean, I could. Well, yeah, that's the other thing. Like, I've never done that. Like, I think I'm a funny person. I do think I know how to make people laugh, and I know when I'm writing comedically for my videos, or when I'm doing one of my side gigs is my best friend Jason Harding and I and my friend Dana Cole, who also co-hosts the Wednesday live stream with me. We do an improv comedy podcast together that is Star Trek themed, called the Ensign's Log. That is, where we're mostly trying to be funny. And I think I'm good at that. And I think we do a good show together. But that's a very different animal than, oh, let me get up on stage in front of people who have not probably come here to see me because I'm not famous for this, right? They don't, oh, Steve's doing stand up. Let's all go. Like, you're in front of a completely cold audience who don't know you and don't have any predisposition toward you. And all you have is a microphone and thoughts in your head, and let's make them laugh. And there's something about that. Like, I don't know if at 43 going on 44, I don't know, having never done that before, that's necessarily what I want to do, since there's all this other stuff I can do that scratches my creative itch.
Well, I mean, it's a lot easier doing it on YouTube when the hecklers are at least delayed, and they
Yes,
have to type whatever they want to say. I
exactly.
do remember my cousin who did stand up. I did stand up a couple of times, and my cousin who had done stand up basically said, "Okay, you've got to be prepared with some zingers back for the people who are going to heckle you.
Yeah.
You just have to have it." Like, he's like, "Look, I'm just trying to do my job here. You're interrupting me. I mean, do I go to Burger King and knock the broom out of your hands? No. Um,
Right, right.
just to have those ready."
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I honestly, I think you're very funny. But if you're funny on YouTube, then stick to YouTube, because who needs an audience? And in fact, I know that in some of your stand up routines, you put your own laugh track in there, because I could hear it as you were doing it.
Oh, for the one you referenced, the Republicans,
Yeah,
if they said the quiet parts loud videos where I'm
yeah.
playing like a generic political candidate. Yeah, they're not, I don't really put laughs in, but like the
The
applause, the
cheering, yeah,
cheers,
the
because it's
cheering
usually
applause.
after I've said something absolutely awful and they're like, yeah.
Yeah. Once again, if you're conservative, don't watch those videos. They're just going to piss you
Oh
off.
no.
You're
Yeah,
probably
that's
100,
yeah.
but you're 100%
I
right. Uh,
Yeah, I I do my best to run off my conservative audience, but there's always a few who wander in and they're like, "Hey, that sounded kind of derogatory to conservatives." And I'm like, "You're new here.
yeah, yeah. You figured me out. But
You got me."
yeah, got me. It's like Stephen Colbert, back in the Colbert Report. It's like, he was
Oh,
this
yeah.
ultra conservative, talk show host, but he was really a liberal pretending to be a conservative, and,
Yeah.
kind of self sabotaging. But anyway, yeah. So let me ask you, when you create these, because one of the things I've noticed about your various Starfleet things, and your other ones
Yeah.
as well, your the politicians saying the
Yeah.
truth out loud and other things, you have a lot that goes on between a cut. Like, he'll be talking for like 2 or 3 minutes, and then he'll like cut and it'll be a little closer, and then he'll be talking
Oh,
again.
sure, yeah.
And I'm assuming that you do that because you didn't have everything in one take, right?
Yes.
You're not talking for
Usually,
20
yeah.
straight minutes. So
No, no. Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes I will manage to get a good long take and I'll choose to like cut into a closer shot just to break it up a little bit to make it more visually interesting. So it's not just, oh, let them sit here and listen to me talk in the same static shot for, 5 minutes at a time or whatever. But yeah, usually, um, I can't, because I mean I always have, especially with the Starfleet jobs one where they're all sort of set up as though the character is being interviewed, so
right.
he's talking to a hypothetical person off camera. So I have my lines, there, like I'm not going completely from memory. I have my laptop set up as a teleprompter next to the
That was my
camera
next question,
where,
which is, are you
yeah,
memorizing this, or is there at least a
yeah,
teleprompter? Because
where the,
honestly,
yeah,
it doesn't. I was going to say it doesn't feel like it's from a teleprompter. That's the big thing. Are you like, is the teleprompter just sort of like prompting you when you're filling in a whole bunch of stuff, or are you really going on script the entire time?
I try to go as close to on script as I possibly can. There have been times when I've gone off a little bit, and in my head, I'm like, "Ah, that's good enough. I'm not going to go back and do that again." But I try to get it as close to what I wrote as I can. And yeah, I've been using a teleprompter for most of my videos for about 5 years now, and I've just gotten good at doing it and sounding natural at it. And I mean, part of it is that I'm reading words that I wrote, and I'm thinking about how I'm going to say it as I'm writing it. So it's I imagine it's a lot more difficult to perform naturally from a teleprompter if you're not as familiar with the script, if you've only maybe read it once before, and certainly if you didn't write it yourself, that's probably a lot more challenging. But for me, and even with the teleprompter, I'll screw up and have to go back and do it again. I'll get ahead of myself, or I'll fall behind, or I'll flub a line, and I'll have to do a retake. Like, thankfully, most of the Starfleet jobs ones don't take super long to shoot. It's not like an all day thing, um, because they're not generally extraordinarily long. They have so far they've fallen in about the 15 to 20-minute range. And I'd like to keep them that way. I'm not trying to make them any longer. I feel like that's about as long as I could ask people to pay attention to something like that. um, but yeah, even within, so it's not a super long actual time in front of the camera, but even so, there's times where I'm like, oh, said that wrong. Or, oh, your inflection is wrong because you say a line that, well, wait a minute, the next line is this. So I should have said that way. It won't sound right. So I've got to go back and do that again. There's mistakes like that happen. Um, but for the most part, it's not, I mean, before I had the teleprompter, I would try to memorize, not the whole thing. I never tried to do an entire thing at once. Um, but I would try to memorize, sort of reasonable chunks of it at a time that I could do to camera so I could, have a properly scripted video and I'm not trying to improvise everything. Um, and that was torture. Like, that would be like, it
Oh,
would take hours to shoot what would end up being like a 15-minute video because it would just take me so long to get it right. So very happy, very, very much happier with the process I have now.
thank you, teleprompter. Now,
Oh, thank you.
now does the teleprompter just keep going and going and going, or are you controlling it, with like a mouse scroller or something like that, so that if you're getting behind,
Yeah.
you can stop it?
I usually have a mouse just, positioned just out of frame. So if I need to scroll up or scroll down or stop or whatever, I can do that. Yeah. Which again is a huge, huge convenience.
Yeah. Otherwise, you're just like,
Yeah. Oh, wait a minute. No. Yeah.
so how many takes typically do you need to get the right one, or does it really just vary?
You know, it's interesting. Sometimes people will ask me, like, if a video, whether it's the Starfleet jobs ones or whether it's another one where I'm playing a character, if a video has like a really long take or maybe a really intense segment where like I'm yelling or I'm displaying some kind of histrionics or I'm crying or I'm drunk or I'm doing whatever, people always say like, oh man, how long did it take you to get that one? And usually those I get in one or two takes. The ones that take me forever to get right are the ones where I just need to say one line. And I just need and I'm like, no, that doesn't sound right. You know what I mean? Like, I just have to say one thing and I'm like, that's not it. And I do it again. That's still not it. And I do it again. That's still not it. And that's the one that takes 5 or 6 or 7 times before I'm like, okay, that's what I wanted. The really long ones, I mean, I'm not one to say it's always like that. There have been times when I've, when I've written like a long stretch that I want to try and get in a single shot, in a single take. And I'm thinking to myself after I'm starting it for the fourth time, why did I write it like this? Like, why did I make myself do this? I've got the words in front of me on a screen and I can't get it right. So I mean that does happen from time to time, but usually it's the really short ones that I need that take forever.
Did you ever hear Nicholas Meyer talk about directing William Shatner in Star Trek 2?
Yes, I think, isn't it? He had to tire him out.
Yes, I love that story.
Yeah,
For
yeah.
those who haven't heard it, obviously Steve has, but this is a great, great story. So Nick Meyer was asked. He was doing a director's commentary. I saw him in Hollywood, and it was a Star Trek 2 anniversary or whatever. But anyway, he was doing director's commentary on it live, and somebody said, what's it like directing William Shatner? And he said, oh, you know what, you just have to wear him out. And like everybody in the audience, like six people in the audience who are directors understood this, and like everybody else was like, what the hell are you talking about? And he said, okay, I can see there's a lot of like confused faces on there. It's like, okay, so Shatner is I'm now doing Nicholas Meyer. So Shatner's he's a leading man. He's very protective of that role in what he does. So because of that, he tends to, and you've seen it, he overacts. He wants to be the center of attention for the scene, and sometimes that means he puts too much into it.
Yeah.
And so, to give an example, he said there's this scene in Star Trek 2 where they're sending the prefix code over, to drop reliance shields or whatever. And, Khan thinks he's getting the Genesis data. And the line is, here it comes. And Kirk is saying to Khan, he's saying, here it comes. But Shatner, the first time he delivers the line, he goes, here it comes. And like,
Yeah.
cut. Bill. No. He's a genetically engineered Superman. He's a genius. If you deliver the line like that, he's going to know something's up. He's going to be suspicious. He can't be suspicious. Okay, so let's try to again. Take it down a little bit, please. Action. And he goes, here it comes. No, Bill. 10 times, 11 times, 12 times. He's doing it's over the top. And he does a cut, reset. Found like 15 times into this, Shatner is exhausted. He doesn't have it in him anymore. And he gave me the line reading the way I needed it, which, of course, as we all know, is here it comes.
Yeah.
Just had to wear him out. And, sometimes, you have to get out of your own head. You got
Yeah.
so much, you're delivering that one line. It's a short line or whatever, and you're throwing so much into it. Whereas, if you're delivering a long series of lines or whatever, and it's like, 2 or 3 pages worth of dialogue, you can just sort of autopilot it. So you're spotlighting
you get into a rhythm. You get into, okay, this you get into a zone and you're just going through it. And that the thing that Shatner story reminds me of is, and that I relate to my own stuff, is when I do get stuck on those single lines or those short takes that I need that I can't get right. It's almost always when I do very, very little. When I've tried it a bunch of different ways and I say to myself, let me just do one where I'm almost doing nothing at all. And that's almost always the one that I want,
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's amazing. Not that I'm an actor, not that I've ever been trained as an actor, but I do live in Los Angeles, so I know a lot of actors, most of them work.
Right.
And the thing is a lot of the stuff that you're saying is things that I've heard them talk about. If you're just not finding it, go into yourself, go into what I would do as me, and try to find it there and then bring something out. So any actors out there who are watching, you can either critique me for being wrong, or you can go, yeah, he gets it. I'm fine. I can't hear you. All right, so let's move from lawyer to janitor, which seems to a little bit of a downgrade. So you finished lawyer. First of all, what was the reaction like to Starfleet lawyer, your first ever Star Trek skit?
Oh, people really liked it. It got for me, it got quite a few views. It got a larger than average viewership, which was very pleasing to me. And and yeah, people seemed to really like it, and people seemed to think it was funny, which I was gratified by. And you could tell by the when people would leave comments and they would pick out particular lines or moments. Every time I see someone pick out a line that I actually think is funny, like if someone points out because I mean, I think most of it is funny. If I didn't think it was funny, it wouldn't be in the video. But if there's a particular line or a particular moment that I really liked, that I was really proud of, that wouldn't necessarily be one of the ones that people would necessarily notice, that always made me very happy. And when people notice those, I'm like, okay, the people there's enough people watching it who see it the way I do that, it might actually go somewhere. So
You're gonna get a lot of
yeah.
Trekkies, why? Because I mean, if you guys haven't watched them yet, I mean, seriously, go and watch them. I mean, obviously, you can wait until after we're done, but there is so much Star Trek trivia that you just kind of drop into there, even if it's not like direct references to one particular episode or whatever. It's a direct reference
Yeah.
to a kind of an episode, the kind of thing that
Yeah.
Star Trek would do. So you've done lawyer. You're now thinking, I want to do this again, right?
Yeah.
What made you decide on janitor next?
I think what I did was I made a list of possible jobs that I could use as subjects for these videos. And I decided to do janitor next because, first of all, that's a job in real life I've actually done. One of my few real life jobs before the YouTube thing was working as a janitor at a truck stop, which I did for 5 years. And so, and
Wow, no wonder you're YouTubing all the time.
I know, right? I'm like, this is better. This is so much better. But there's so a lot of that character is based on my own experience and my actual old job. Not all of it, and some of it, and some of it is also based on my dad. My dad was not quite a janitor, but he worked in the maintenance department of a state hospital. That was like his career. And so a lot of the characterization of the janitor, especially like just his voice and his mannerisms and his overall sort of vibe, is based on my dad. Um, and so that made it attractive to me. And then from there, I just sort of started to put the character together. I knew I wanted him to wear like a Voyager style uniform, but I knew I wanted it to be a little customized, so he's wearing the top and it's open kind of like a jacket, and he has the gray undershirt, but it's a hoodie, so he looks a little bit more working class. And
Yeah.
you know, I knew I wanted to do stuff like that, and to give him a hat with a like a Voyager Starfleet badge on it. So I did that, and I wanted him to be happy. I wanted him to like his job because the lawyer is miserable.
Yeah.
And I thought it would be funny if the janitor loves his job. I mean, he makes a few remarks in it about, the enlisted personnel know more than the officers, and the officers always say like, "Oh, the ships clean themselves." Well, guess what? No, they don't. Like, there's a little bit of that in there, but he's not like, he mostly seems happy and to enjoy his work. And you get the impression that like he has this little team of people that he works with, that he has kind of a parental relationship to. And, his whole attitude is much more positive than the lawyer's is. And I found that appealing and found it funny. The idea that the happiest person on the ship would be the guy with what outsiders would think was the worst job.
Well,
you know?
it's kind of funny because one of the things that Gene Roddenberry had said, and Star Trek then proceeded to say is, we don't have money in the 24th century, and everybody
Right.
is free to pursue whatever it is that they want, which is great if you want to be an engineer or a Starfleet, a starship captain or whatever, or a security officer, all the things that you could dream of being. And here's a guy who's a janitor. It's like, really, somebody wants to be a janitor on a starship and clean up
Yeah.
protoplasm and God knows what else. But I was watching this guy's like, yeah, he apparently does.
Yeah.
That's his dream.
Well,
I mean, I don't think
I
every janitor's like that, but
probably not. I mean, my justification for it was, and I've used this for some of the other ones too, um, that it's a way to go to space. Like, even though he's a janitor and he has a very specific and, not very glamorous job, he still gets to live on a spaceship and he
yeah,
gets to travel the stars. And even though that's not his primary focus, that is a part of it. And he enjoys getting to do that, and he takes a certain pride in it. There's a little bit that I enjoyed coming up with in that one where, he talks about the ship that he served on, or the ship that he's serving on, or that he served on before the ship that he's on when he's talking, for the video. And it was a ship that it was of a certain class. It was like a very prestigious ship that he was just happy to be on. And he was proud of that. And he has a little model of it on his desk. And, he takes pride in getting to be on these ships and to, to do his part and to explore the universe, even though he's not really doing any hands-on exploring. He's not going on landing parties and meeting aliens and stuff. He's still there and he's part of it. And he values that. And I think that's part of um the appeal. Like, if when people say, like, well, sure, why would anybody in the future, if you don't have to work for money, why would people do certain jobs? I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily have an answer for that as far as people living on Earth. But if you could be a janitor on a spaceship and you wanted to go to space and explore other planets and explore the stars, I can understand why somebody would want to do that, you know?
and he also knows where to get the best sandwiches. So
Absolutely. He knows all the people. He knows he's friends with the kitchen staff. He knows all the people to talk to. He's got all the angles figured out. Like, he's probably one of the people on the ship that other people go to when they need something, you know.
yeah,
And of course, you can also with him and with I've done this with all of the characters that have been in those videos so far, and it's one of the things that I think is that I'm good at writing this kind of thing, and it's just consistently funny to find different angles of it, is finding just absolutely horrible stories, like just unthinkably awful things that have happened, that are usually told in a way that makes them funny. Like when the janitor says he tells a story that is reminiscent of an episode of TNG where somebody was in an accident that caused their psychic echo to be embedded in the walls. And he points at the janitor tells this story and he points at his tools on his desk and he says, "Which one of these do you use to get someone's psychic echo out of a wall?" Like, it's just the most ridiculous thing. It's like, what
brilliant
is my
stuff.
role here? What am I supposed to do? Or when he says that, he talks about that he attended a funeral where all they had in the casket was an air filter because the person was vaporized, and that was the only part of their remains they could recover was the particles that were collected by the air circulation system. And he tells that story and he chokes up,
Yeah,
because and I'm like, that's so stupid. That's so absurd.
it's
But, it's like, that's what's funny about it, is like, this is the world that these people live in, where, something as ridiculous as, well, we couldn't recover any remains because they were vaporized by a death ray, but we found some of them in the air filter. So we're going to put that in the torpedo that we, launch into space,
yeah.
you
In a
know,
lot of ways, it's very much like Star Trek's Lower Decks. The whole
a
concept
little.
of Lower Decks, is they do answer some of the questions of Star Trek that were never answered. Like, okay, first contact's great. Who handles second contact?
Right.
What's that all about? And it's just, Lower Decks almost has to be funny. I mean, obviously the first episode, that was Lower Decks of TNG was funny till it wasn't.
You,
Because it had to end
yeah.
on a point.
Yes. Got very serious at the end there. Yeah.
But before that, it was fun. It was funny because let's face it, when you're in the lower decks, you don't get to see out the windows, and
Yeah.
It was I actually I saw a meme recently, and it was O'Brien. It was actually a picture of Colin Meaney looking older, and probably from something else
Mhm.
that get done later on. But it was just the musings of O'Brien, the transporter chief. Because
Yeah.
it was so boring just standing around in the transporter room, for like 8 hour shifts. Like literally, you get to do something for like a minute, and then the transporter room's empty again. Until
Yeah.
somebody needs to boom back up. It's like you're literally standing there. There's nothing to do. He's like, well, sometimes when we're in the orbit of a primitive planet, I just like to beam somebody up really, really quick and go boo, and then beam
Yeah,
them back.
exactly. Yeah, I mean those are the sort of musings that, inform those when I write those videos. It's like I'm looking for things like that. I mean, I think the difference between what I try to do with those videos and what they do on Lower Decks is Lower Decks really leans heavily into specific references from other Star Trek shows.
Yeah,
And I try to avoid that as much as possible. There are some references, especially in the Starfleet lore one, that I tried to keep very indirect. But like he talks about the events of The Measure of a Man. He refers to it. He never refers to anybody by name. I don't think he even says, and I think he does say the Enterprise, but that's as specific as he gets. But it's because his sister was the lawyer on the Enterprise at the time, and she didn't get to try that case because
yeah,
Captain Picard did. You know, um, but other than stuff like that, like I try to, you mentioned a few minutes ago, I refer to things that are kind of like what happened in Star Trek episodes. So my personal rule when I write them and when I create the characters, it can't be anybody who would have actually served on one of the hero ships, like from an actual show. So there's never going to be a character who's actually on the Enterprise or on Voyager or on Deep Space Nine or anything like that. And ideally, they won't even directly reference something from that. It'll just be something that reminds you of it or something that
yeah,
feels like it could have happened in the same universe, that evokes the same sense of absurdity, you know,
yeah.
so that you so that
And
you get the joke.
yeah. Well, I mean, it also
Yeah.
makes you think like, the Enterprise isn't the only ship having to deal with all this crap.
Right.
Somebody else is going to run into a cosmic entity with, the power to control minds, or, ability to, teleport or whatever, or,
Yeah. And
psychic
and and
entities.
and coming up with those lines with those references is one of the fun parts to me of writing it. Like instead of just thinking of something that happened in a Star Trek episode and having the guy reference that, try to come up with something that feels like it would happen in that same world, but is something that never happened in any of the shows. So it's like a hypothetical premise for a Star Trek episode that never actually happened, but feels like maybe it could have. Um, and I like that. Like that's a lot of fun to do. To have the care which whoever it is, whether it's the lawyer or the janitor or whoever, reference something that sounds like it could have been a Star Trek episode. It wasn't, but it could have been. Yeah.
Man, it's a lot of fun, and it's fun because as you watch it, you're just like, oh, I remember that episode he's talking about, but yet it wasn't. It was just this like,
Yeah.
this is the sort of stuff that happens in Star Trek. Okay, so moving on to number three, which was the Union Rep. Now I
Yeah.
noticed the timing of that one was pretty much
Yeah.
in the middle of the writers' strike and the Screen Actors Guild
Yeah.
strike, the UAW, United Auto Workers strike. I mean, we had a lot of strikes last summer. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
so I'm guessing that was a little bit inspired by that. And is that a wrong guess?
Oh yeah. No, that definitely was inspired by that. I was planning on doing the guidance counselor one third. Because that was next on my list of possible subjects. And then the actor strike happened, the writer strike happened, and then yeah, the auto workers. And I was like, oh, I should do something about that. And start and because I had an idea already. I used to do, theoretically I still do, but I haven't had time to actually do them in a long time. But I do photo comics with my Star Trek action figures that you can faintly see on display behind me back there. I have
There's a
a
lot
whole
of them.
bunch of yeah, there's a bunch of them. And I got most of them because I wanted to use them to make comics, like photo comics. And I did for a couple years, and then I just got too busy to keep doing it. So, I never actually said I'm not doing it anymore. I just haven't had time to do it lately. But one of the ideas that I had for one of those that I haven't actually gotten to make yet was that there would be a like basically a union contract negotiation on the Enterprise, and the main character of the comics is Commander Riker, because I love Commander Riker. And but in my version of Riker, he's just a complete nightmare. Like he's like always has to be the center of attention, and he ruins everything, and he's just an absolute nightmare to work with. And so the premise was that Riker was being Riker and kept sabotaging these union negotiations. So that put the idea in my head of, oh, Starfleet should have a union, and I don't think there's any basis for it in any of the shows. I mean, we know that there's enlisted personnel and there's commissioned officers, but we've never really gotten any sense that there's any kind of, collective bargaining or organization, in the enlisted ranks. But I thought, well, what if there was, and because I thought, well, even in a moneyless economy and even in a military structure in this kind of situation where the stakes are this high and it's like a life or death situation, people who are subject to a higher authority should have some way to balance that out when necessary. And so they can, they can come together and bargain as a unit and say, look, we're happy to be here on the ship and do the dirty work and follow your orders, but we need some guidelines in place for this. And if you don't do that, then we're going to collectively decide we're not going to do what we need to do. So that was where the idea came from. And I decided to make it roughly in the Enterprise TV series era, because that felt more working class than the others. I mean, I would assume that there would be something like this in any era of Star Trek, but for that video, I thought he should be. And plus, like, the uniform of Enterprise is a jumpsuit, so it feels kind of like overalls. It feels like you're a mechanic, so it felt very union, very working class. So I wanted that. But yeah, that was definitely, I came up with that idea much quicker than the other ones because of the various ongoing strikes over the summer. Yeah.
Now, how long did it take you to write that script versus the other ones? You said it was quicker.
The actual writing of the scripts is always about the same. Like, once I decide that one of those is going to be an upcoming video and I actually sit down and write it, the actual writing process usually doesn't take that long. It takes a couple of days. I think the Union one probably took maybe not quite as long because it just sort of came to me in a rush. Like, I just sort of decided, oh, I'm going to do this. And then it just sort of came out of me. So it probably took not quite as long as the others, but they haven't taken super long to write.
Well, I mean, it was definitely a lot of fun. How many uniforms do you own?
I have the 4 that have been in videos so far, and then I think I have one more in the closet that I haven't used yet that I think I'm going to use for the next one. And I think that's all I have right now. I tend to just get them as I need them, because I'm not really, that's it. Like, I'm not a cosplayer. Like, I don't go to conventions. I don't dress up for Halloween. So I get the outfit that I need when I decide, okay, I'm definitely going to do this video, and this is, the costume that I want the character to be in. Then I'll start looking for it and be like, okay, I'm going to need one of those and one of those. So I have one that I haven't used yet that I got because I knew when I did this particular job, I wanted it to have this particular uniform. And that'll be the next one I do. But after that, I'm going to have to get enough. I'm going to have to buy a few more because I'm out of costumes that I haven't used yet.
Need to expand your Patreon donations.
Yeah.
You probably mentioned it at this point since you need money. What's the Patreon or
Oh,
giving money to me?
Patreon.com/Steve Shives.
All righty, Steve Shives, SHIVES.
Yes, indeed.
So the last one to talk about, and then we get to let you go back to your regularly scheduled life, is right now the one that's my absolute favorite. I wasn't really expecting it. I mean, I started watching it. I was like, oh, it's a guidance counselor or whatever. And I won't spoil it for anybody to tell you how it ends, to tell people how it ends. But it was very unexpectedly poignant, with a rather political message at the end. Once again, conservatives, Just deal with it. Uh,
It's Star Trek. Like
it's
if
Star Trek. We're woke. We were the
if you
original
yeah,
woke. We were woke in the 60s when woke was woke, as opposed to
exactly.
something bad.
If you're offended by progressive political messages, you probably shouldn't be watching Star Trek
Yeah,
because they're all over the place.
sorry to tell you, it's not a bunch of
Yeah.
conservative people. They didn't like the Nazis in the episodes in the
No, they
1960s.
really didn't.
Yeah. Hail the Fuhrer. Um,
What happened to those guys?
yeah.
It's not like Captain Kirk found the Nazi planet and said, "Oh, nice job. Well done,
I like a
John Gill.
strong
You did a
man.
really good job."
Good job. Somebody should be, one person should be in charge making all the
Yeah,
decisions.
that's the message I want to leave you with. This was a
Even
great
better,
idea.
even better if it's a computer making all the decisions.
Oh, yes. Captain Kirk loved it when he found a computer in charge of a planet. He
Yeah, it's
always
like,
enjoyed
okay,
that.
let's go to the next planet. These guys are fine.
Yeah, these guys are doing fine. Let the computer run their whole society. That looks like that's working out great.
That would be an amusing character, a captain who was like literally like, okay, that planet looks fine. Let's go to the next one.
Yeah. Or he was like, you know what? I want to change this, but this is too much for me to take on right now. I'm just going to go to the next one. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I actually see it's not Stashwood's character from Picard season 3 as being a captain
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. It's like,
Yeah.
we're not going to interfere. It's not our job.
Exactly. This is not what we came here to do.
No,
We're
but
not
Captain,
doing this.
no.
No. Did you drop off the medical supplies? Okay, we're done here. What's next?
Got a list, got a clipboard.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, yes. All right, that way I want to see. Now I want to see that one. Anyway, so talk a little about the guidance counselor. That one went so dark so quickly, but it was riveting to
Yeah.
me.
Well, thank you. I mean, part of what makes me decide to do a particular job is I need to figure out a way into it. And I need to figure out like with most of them, and with the guidance counselor one as well, it's okay, what's the joke? I don't want to just do a character where I don't want to just show somebody where, oh, he's just kind of screwing around in Star Trek and there's not really a point to it. Like there has to be a point to it. And with the guidance counselor one, that kind of like the lawyer, it started with the recognition that there's this really absurd trope kind of hiding behind a lot of Star Trek stories of where are the actual lawyers. With the guidance counselor, it's something that I know has been not necessarily a critique, but just something that a lot of people have noticed, especially about TNG, which is why are there children on this ship? And I understand the dramatic reasons for it. And I know Gene Roddenberry spoke about it a time or two when he was alive and how his idea was, oh, we'll take our families into space with us. And the Enterprise is like it's a home away from home. And our explorers want to have their children. There's all kinds of dramatic opportunities that it opens up for you if there's children on the ship and parents on the ship. And so it makes a lot of sense from a dramatic point of view. And I'm not arguing that TNG's creators shouldn't have done that. But if you look at it and imagine yourself in more of a real world perspective, it's both funny and absolutely chilling to imagine you're on a spaceship that could be destroyed at any moment. And not only are there like 1,000 people on it, that would be bad enough if 1,000 of anybody could just be snuffed out in a moment. But to imagine, oh, and there are really young children on this ship whose existence could be extinguished in an instant at any moment. And we're choosing to have all of these children on these ships. And, it's an opportunity for some incredibly dark humor. And it's also an opportunity to say, oh, are there any real life situations in our actual society right now where maybe we're putting children in completely unnecessary danger because there are things about our society that for some reason we just refuse to change, that we could change, but we're just not? because not enough of us are in positions to make decisions, because we've put responsibility for these decisions in the hands of the wrong people. It just, and once that clicked with me, that I could not only make some absolutely bleak, awful jokes about it that would make people laugh and then make people feel bad for laughing, but also use it as, to do what actual Star Trek has always done, which is use it as a lens to look back at our own society and say, hey, yeah, boy, isn't it terrible that they would needlessly endanger the lives of all those children? What a horrible society would do such a thing. There's just no excuse for that, is there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, then I told you I was going to talk about the ending, but guess who did?
Yeah.
No. Anyway,
Just in a general way, just in a
it's okay.
general way.
Yeah, but honestly,
But
you have to watch it because I mean, when it gets
yeah,
to the because I didn't see it coming. I mean, I did, but I didn't. But it was like as you pulled as the plane was approaching the runway, you're about like maybe 10, 9, 8 seconds from like touching down where you feel that little bump. I was like, oh, he's gonna go there, isn't he? And
yeah,
he went there. But up until then, it was just because I agree with you. I think dramatically the idea of having children on the Enterprise, and Gene was so excited about that idea. Obviously Wesley
mhm.
was the main character. He wanted to have a
Right,
kid. Literally, he realized that the kid was going to grow to be so tall so quickly.
right,
But there's basically you had your Will Robinson on board. The Enterprise,
sure,
and it was fun. Then they had some other some other episodes where you had, children, Jeremy Astor loses his mom and,
yeah,
the kid who, wants to, is dealing with his grief by wanting to become Data because Data doesn't have any emotions, lots of,
absolutely,
interesting stories. But, in the episode, where Silent, no, it was Contagion, I believe it was, where the Yamato, which is another Galaxy class starship, blows up because they
yes,
contracted that computer virus. I think that was Contagion. Uh,
I think you're right.
you
Yeah,
know, and the idea was, the Galaxy class starships all have children on them. It wasn't just the Enterprise. I mean, it was just designed to be, a ship of families. When that ship blows up, they don't really even think about the children that were on that ship. I mean, they barely think about it at all during the episode. It was like
right,
one of those things that, oh, darn, we lost another starship. Um,
yeah,
I I really wish they'd feel more, hurt, more affected when other ships get blown up.
yeah,
And I think, and I think in one of your most important, lines in the end, okay, I'm spoil it again, is you talk about the Battle of Wolf 359,
oh yeah,
and obviously, Jake, was on the Saratoga with his dad and his mom, lost his mom during that, but the
yeah,
reminder that a lot of the victims of Wolf 359 were children.
yeah,
We think about 359, we think about all those lives lost if we think about it at all. Of course, it's just a show, so the lives really weren't lost, folks. It's okay.
right,
But in Star Trek reality, I think in a lot of ways, Wolf 359 was our 9/11. Many years before
yeah,
9/11 happened. But it's just
yeah,
one of those things where remember Wolf 359 and Starfleet changed forever. Then we started producing warships. We started developing the Defiant class and the Akira class, and
mhm,
the ships that were basically there to protect Starfleet because we had kind of gotten lazy. We hadn't had a major war in a long time. So the idea that you're right that children are put in harm's way, it was a dramatic choice by the writers. It made for some interesting storylines, but this was an important fan film to just remind people that there are lives behind every life that's lost, and some of those lives are going to end way 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 too early. And is it a good idea to take your family
yeah,
on your starship? And
yeah,
and some people might say, yes, it is. I don't want to be away from. I don't want to come back and have my just born son be 5 years old.
sure.
And having missed
Well,
all
that's
of
the
that.
thing, is like you can understand, even if you look at it purely from an in story perspective, like you can make an argument for it And what you just said is exactly right. If you are on, and the character, the Starfleet guidance counselor, even says something like this, like that's part of the appeal. That's why in the, the world of that video, that's why Starfleet founds the Starship School program in the first place, because well, this will be a draw. This will be a draw for recruitment. You can, if you get assigned to a starship that's on this long-term mission where you're going to be away from Earth for years at a time, where are you married? Do you have kids? You can bring your kids. You can bring your family. You can all explore the universe together. And yeah, there are, you can imagine there would be a lot of people who would say, gosh, I would love to accept that posting on the new ship that's going out to the outer, edge of explored territory, but I'm going to be gone for 5 years. When I come back, my kids will be in high school. I don't want to miss out on all of that. But if you can take them with you and they want to go, well, maybe that'll be the point that, makes you decide to do that. But then the other side of that is, oh, then you run into the weird space thing that turns the ship inside out. And oops, guess they should have left the kids back on Earth,
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing I really like about your series of these Starfleet jobs. I guess we can call that
Yeah, that's what I call them. Yeah.
videos. Yeah, because I really feel like it's looking at Star Trek from a fresh perspective that we haven't seen before. And like I said, it's the lower decks perspective, but obviously lower decks is lower decks.
Mhm.
But it really is, from the ground up, of what Star Trek is. And let's face it, after you have this many fan films over this many decades as we have, it takes a lot to really make me say, oh, that's a really fresh new idea, and I find that intriguing.
Thank
um
you.
so once again,
Well,
I've complimented
I know, I know I have noticed over the past several years since I really started doing a lot of Star Trek related stuff on my channel, the kind of Star Trek fan that I am is not necessarily the kind of fan that the most like involved Trekkies are like online. Like I don't necessarily approach the show the same way that a lot of people, who do go to conventions and cosplay and like read all the novels and read all the comics. And the kind of people like, oh, the new episode of the new episode is going up on Paramount Plus at 3 a.m. Let's stay up and watch it. I'm like, no, I'll sleep. I'll go to sleep and watch it in the morning. I can wait. I mean, I'm definitely going to watch it the first day, but I'm not staying up until 3 o'clock to watch it. I can watch it in the morning. It's fine. But like I I have come to realize that my point of contact with Star Trek is I care about the story and I care about the characters, and everything else is secondary to me. So while I know a lot of the lore and the canon because I've been watching it my whole life and I've seen I've seen every episode of every show, and I have a lot of it just sort of engraved in my brain. Most of those factoids, most of those like little pieces of trivia about Star Trek aren't really important to me, except in the roles they played in the stories, So when I do like a Starfleet jobs video, or even when I do a video where I'm critiquing like a movie or an episode or something, like I'm not trying to just, list all of the stuff that happened or talk about the ship designs, or what. I mean, I'm interested in a lot of that. I have my opinions on what the best looking ships are and what my favorite bridge set is and all that stuff. But what really makes me attracted to it is the story and the characters and the message. Like what are we trying to say? What is this actually about? What is this telling us about what our lives are or ought to be or should be or could be? Um, so even with what I do in a very humble, modest way, I try to do that and to say, okay, let's not use this as a vehicle to just show everybody all the Star Trek trivia I remember, and be like, oh, it's like this episode and this episode and this episode, and remember this character, and I'll drop this name and I'll drop that name. I'm just not interested in that. I would rather make up as much of it as I can on my own while still fitting it within that construct, because otherwise, why even do it? Why not just make up something completely new? You want it to fit within what has come before, but to add to it or to comment on it or to spoof it or satirize it or point at it and say, that's weird, right? Like, why are there kids on these ships? Why aren't there any lawyers on these shows? Why don't you ever see a janitor or whatever, and find a way of commenting on it while also trying to do what it does, in the actual show. And that's what interests me. And so maybe if you think that like those videos are a fresh take on it, that's why, because that's where my interest lies. Like my interest is in, it's very much coming at it as, from a storytelling perspective and saying, okay, like what if these were real people? Or, what if Paramount, you know, what if the Blue Fairy came down from the mountain and said, hey, you can do a Star Trek show? Boing, like what would your Star Trek show be? And it wouldn't be anything that anybody has ever seen before. Like it wouldn't be, oh, I would bring back this character and this character. No, it would be people you've never met before. And they would be going to places we've never seen. I would be making up new stuff because to me, that's the whole point. And there'd still be Klingons and Vulcans and all the typical Star Trek stuff, but you would never see Captain Picard ever. You would never hear his name because I love Captain Picard, but I love Captain Sisko. You'll never hear his name because he did his show. This is something else, and that's an attitude that a lot of Trekkies I just don't have. Some do, but it feels like it's a minority, which I'm very happy to be in because it means that, it probably impresses people like you a lot more than it should because it's like, oh, this isn't something I've seen before. This is great,
Well, I mean, you're officially now a fan filmmaker, so congratulations, Star Trek fan filmmaker.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad to be welcomed into the club.
Welcome to the club.
Oh.
You can pay your dues at the end of the month.
Sweet.
But no, I mean, there's a lot of fan filmmakers out there doing a lot of different things, and some of them want to do Star Trek that we've seen before, and some of them are going in brand new directions that we've never seen. There's a group that's was doing Dreadnought Dominion that just launched a new series called Warbird Valdor, which is basically every fan film is told from the point of view of a Romulan crew on a Romulan warbird. So it's like it's fun, and there have been other fan films that have been from a Klingon point of view and everything. It's a Klingon crew. What is a Klingon crew? Did they explore strange new worlds? No, they go down there and they conquer them. So
right.
It's fun. So it's one of the reasons why I hang out so much in this community, and I give the spotlight to these folks because somebody's got to do it. But I appreciate the fact that they're all putting in so much work and they have that passion, that love for Star Trek. So
absolutely.
Absolutely. So when are we getting our next one and then our next one after that? How many more of these are you planning on doing, Steve?
I would have to check my list. I probably should have looked at my list before we started this so I could give you a specific answer, but I have a document that lists quite a few more than what I have done so far. I'm not sure exactly when the next one will be. Probably at some point in the next couple of months, but I haven't written it yet and I haven't like nailed down exactly when I want to do it, but I know what it'll be. And I think I know what the one after it will be too. But after that, I'll have to consult the list and be like, okay, now what's next? But I have a few that I feel like I have at least somewhat of a handle on, that I know what direction they'll take. And I feel like once I decide, okay, in 2 weeks on Wednesday, this is going to be the video, so I need to start working on it. And I sit down to write it, I feel like I'll know, what it is and where it's going to go. But yeah, probably sometime in the next couple of months, the next one will be. But I mean, it's pretty open-ended because they're all very standalone. So it's not like I have a concept or I'm going to do 6 and then that'll be it. Then the story will be complete. Like they're all, sort of self-contained. So as long as I can keep coming up with ideas for them that I think are worth doing, I'll keep doing them because they're a lot of fun.
Well, they're a lot of fun to watch as well. So even though there's going to be a blog above us for people who just sort of come off of internet to YouTube and pop into this and they don't necessarily go to my blog, where would they go to subscribe to your videos on
You can
YouTube?
find me, you can find me at youtube.com/Steve Shives.
There,
Both my names all in one word, youtube.com/Steve Shives. And you will find all of the videos we've been talking about and a bunch more and more of me than you could ever
13
possibly
other,
want to watch.
yeah, ridiculous numbers. But you start
Yeah.
watching, it's like, hey, it's pretty good too. Uh, unless you're
Hopefully.
conservative. Uh,
Yeah, there's really nothing for you there if you lean to the right politically, but other than
yeah,
that,
yeah. If you're if you're a
you'll hopefully
Trumper,
find
just
something.
yeah,
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
gonna like him.
No.
You're just
You're
not
not
gonna
going to
like him
like
at
it.
all.
You're not going to like it.
But if you're a liberal from a blue state like me, then yeah, you're just like, okay, I want to share this video with everybody I know. Uh,
What I
all
really
right, yeah,
enjoy is because I'm from Maryland, and Maryland is a blue state, but the part of Maryland that I live in is extremely red. So whenever I always like when I see someone commenting on one of my videos who also lives in this general area, and they're like, "Oh, another one, another liberal from this part of Maryland. Oh, I'm not the only one."
oh,
It's always
that's
nice.
funny. Yeah,
Yeah,
because that part of Maryland, by the way, the Appalachian Mountains go right
yeah,
through, and they hit that part
yep,
of Pennsylvania because Pennsylvania they like it's basically blue with Alabama in the middle, uh,
exactly. That's exactly right.
and then West Virginia to the south. But it's a beautiful area.
Yep.
I mean, I love
Oh,
those
yeah,
mountains.
it's wonderful.
Um, but anyway, Steve, thank you very much for your time, and I look forward to more and more stuff from you as you continue to make your living off of the internet and all of us little plebes who either donate or at least subscribe and watch your advertisements.
Thank you.
And I will now say, as I always do, live long and prosper. Right? You can do that. There we go. Thanks a lot, Steve.
Thank you.